Prisoner 8612 is showing signs of extreme emotional disturbance, requesting termination of participation. The tape recorder clicks in the background. It's August 17th, 1971. Somewhere beneath Jordan Hall at Stanford University, 450 Jane Stanford Way, Stanford, California, approximately 37.4275 degree north, 122.1697 degree west, a 22-year-old college student is sobbing. He's shaking, sweating, breathing rapidly. He believes he is trapped in a prison. The cell is barely the size of a closet. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. The air smells like concrete and recycled air conditioning, but this is not San Quentin. There are no real criminals here, only students, volunteers, paid $15 per day to participate in what was supposed to be a 2-week psychological study. 6 days later, it would be shut down, because something went very wrong. The experiment officially began at midnight on August 14th, 1971. It was funded by the U.S. Office of Naval Research. The principal investigator was Dr. Philip G. Zimbardo, a 38-year-old psychology professor at Stanford. His research question was deceptively simple. What happens when ordinary people are placed in positions of power and submission? The Vietnam War was raging overseas. The My Lai massacre had been exposed in 1969. Images of American soldiers committing atrocities had shaken the public. Abu Ghraib did not yet exist, but the seeds of institutional abuse were already visible in American history, from prison riots to police brutality. Zimbardo wanted to understand how environments shape behavior. He placed an ad in the Palo Alto Times on August 1st, 1971. Male college students needed for psychological study of prison life, $15 per day. More than 70 students responded. 24 were selected after psychological screening. They were randomly assigned roles, guards or prisoners. The basement of Jordan Hall was converted into a simulated jail. 3 small cells were constructed using steel bars and plywood. A closet became solitary confinement. A hallway became the yard. The guards were given khaki uniforms, mirrored sunglasses to prevent eye contact, wooden batons, and whistles. The prisoners were arrested at their homes by real Palo Alto police officers on August 14th. Handcuffed, booked, fingerprinted, blindfolded. Driven to the Stanford basement, it was theatrical, and it worked. Each prisoner was stripped, deloused, and given a smock with an ID number. No underwear. A stocking cap over the head to simulate shaved hair. They were no longer names. They were numbers. Prisoner 8612. Prisoner 819. Prisoner 1037. Zimbardo assumed the role of prison superintendent. That decision would later become central to the controversy. Within 24 hours, the guards began asserting dominance. They woke prisoners at 2:30 a.m. for counts, forced them to repeat their ID numbers, made them do push-ups, denied bathroom access. One guard, later identified as Dave Eshelman, known as John Wayne during the experiment, adopted an exaggerated Southern accent and imposed harsh discipline. The transformation was swift. By August 16th, prisoners were rebelling. Mattress barricades. Refusal to follow orders. The guards responded with fire extinguishers. Solitary confinement. Public humiliation. Prisoner 8612, later revealed to be Douglas Corpy, experienced what appeared to be a psychological breakdown on August 17th. He screamed that he felt trapped, that he was losing control. He begged to leave. Zimbardo initially tried to convince him to stay. He was released after approximately 36 hours, but the atmosphere only intensified. On August 18th, guards forced prisoners to clean toilets with bare hands. They removed mattresses from some cells. They pitted prisoners against one another for privileges. Prisoner 819 began crying uncontrollably. A guard forced other prisoners to chant, "Prisoner 819 did a bad thing." The emotional cruelty escalated. And here's the chilling part. No one told the guards to act this way. No written instructions mandated abuse. The structure of authority was enough. Psychologically, the Stanford prison experiment became a case study in de-individuation, the loss of self-awareness in group settings. The mirrored sunglasses eliminated eye contact. Uniforms removed personal identity. Roles replaced individuality. Zimbardo later argued that the situation, not inherent personality, drove behavior. But the experiment would face intense scrutiny decades later. In 2018, French academic Thibault Lautexier reviewed archived recordings and documents. He argued that some guards were coached to behave harshly, that the narrative of spontaneous brutality may have been exaggerated. Former prisoner Douglas Corpy later stated that his breakdown was partly performative, that he wanted to leave to study for exams. The mythology began to crack, but in August 1971, none of that mattered, because what unfolded in that basement felt real. On August 20th, 1971, just 6 days after it began, the experiment was terminated, not by Zimbardo, but by Christina Maslach, a graduate student and Zimbardo's future wife. She visited the prison on August 19th and was horrified by what she saw. She confronted Zimbardo. "What you're doing to these boys is terrible." The next day, the study ended. 6 days, not 14. The climax of the Stanford prison experiment is not a beating, not a death. It's something quieter. It's the moment a respected university allowed students to psychologically torment each other in the name of research. And the lead investigator became part of the system he was studying. Zimbardo later testified before Congress about prison reform. He became an expert witness in the Abu Ghraib trials in 2004, arguing that systemic conditions can transform ordinary soldiers into abusers. His work influenced decades of psychological theory. But critics argue the experiment lacked scientific rigor, small sample size, lack of control group, possible demand characteristics. Still, its cultural impact is undeniable. The basement of Jordan Hall is no longer a prison. The plywood walls are gone. Students walk the halls unaware of what happened beneath them in 1971. Philip Zimbardo died on October 14, 2024, at age 91. He maintained that the experiment revealed uncomfortable truths about power. Some participants went on to successful careers. Others rarely speak publicly about those 6 days. The Stanford prison experiment was not illegal. It was not classified. It was not conducted in secret. It was published, discussed, analyzed. And yet, it revealed something that continues to disturb. Under the right conditions, cruelty does not require monsters. It requires structure, authority, permission. The guards were not psychopaths. They were psychology students. The prisoners were not criminals. They were volunteers. But roles reshaped them. And when Zimbardo blurred the line between observer and authority figure, the experiment lost its ethical anchor. The legacy of Stanford influenced the establishment of stricter institutional review board protocols in human research. Informed consent processes became more rigorous. Psychological harm became recognized as real harm. But the unease remains, because Stanford wasn't a war zone. It wasn't a dictatorship. It was one of the most prestigious universities in the United States. And within 72 hours, it produced humiliation, breakdown, and abuse. If 6 days in a simulated prison can do that, what does real power do over years? The final image isn't a screen. It's a quiet hallway in Palo Alto. Fluorescent lights, concrete floors. And the knowledge that the capacity for cruelty was never imported. It was already there, waiting for a uniform, waiting for a title, waiting for permission. The next time someone says, "I was just following the role I was given," remember what happened in that basement.